You know, I talked to Rick about that. He said he has no recollection.
It's not fair, though, and only being because of that. I like to other things and stuff as well. And I know
No.
so all that stuff I just put so far out, I don't remember.
908 Big 550 KTRS. If you are a fan of baseball, if you are a fan of St. Louis, if you're a fan of a great story, there is a book out there. It's called The Phenomenon, just out, written by our next guest, Rick Ankiel. He's on a book signing tour today at the Hall of Fame Museum at Busch Stadium from 4 to 6. He's also at Left Bank Books, hosted by the Ethical Society tomorrow. On the 20th, he's at Barnes & Noble in Chesterfield. On the 22nd, he's at Costco in St. Louis. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Fox Sports Midwest broadcaster, former Cardinal, former Royal, former Brave, former National, former Astros, and New York Met, Rick Ankiel. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. It's good to be here.
Do you like broadcasting?
I do. It's been fun. I didn't, when I was playing, I never knew I would end up in this field. But, yeah, I have enjoyed it.
You're great as a broadcaster.
Thanks.
I mean, you're really fun to listen to. You and Jim Edmonds, because you're not filled with platitudes. You sort of break it down. You were there, so you have the credibility, but you're not talking out of your ear. I mean, you do it in a way that makes the listener and the viewer sort of learn something along the way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Are you going to do it long term, or what's?
I'd like to. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to continue down that road and hopefully get some more time.
Yeah. Your book, the Phenomenon. You wrote it for your two kids.
Absolutely. It's a part of their story. I think they're getting to the age now where they're going to start asking, and other people are kind of mentioning it to them, and they're starting to realize, hey, Dad used to play Major League Baseball, and I want them to understand. So,
you're so well known for your foibles on the such a public stage. Do you get tired of talking about it? Do you get tired of people coming up to you because they don't know what else to say other than, hey, you used to throw to the backstop, right? I mean, it must get tiring at some point.
When I first made the switch, that's why, to the media, too, I would say, hey, listen, if you want to ask me questions about being an outfielder or position player, I'll answer them. But I'm not going to go back and answer the pitching stuff because I did that when I was doing it, and it's hard enough to be a baseball player, let alone try to answer questions about two different things.
Right.
So for a long time, I really didn't talk about it. But, in writing the book, it's really become therapeutic. I didn't realize that was going to happen, but it has, and I don't mind talking about it. When I went through the throwing stuff and the pitching stuff, I couldn't find literature on it, and nobody wanted to talk about it. And I understand, I understand why. But now that I'm to the other side of it, I realize I can help people. And there's more than that in the book. There's just, I come from really dysfunctional home life as a child, and there's plenty of other people out there who came from the same thing. And even in doing these interviews, I mean, the book's coming out today, but it hasn't come out yet. I've had plenty of people come up and just say, hey, I came from a similar situation, and it's helped me to hear you talk about it, and thank you for doing it.
So I have a stuttering problem, and I got into broadcasting, and not that my problems are anywhere near as bad as others, but I've always been very forthcoming in, hey, I have a problem, this is my issue. And I've found that people come up to me and say, oh, my goodness, thank you for telling your story, because I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. And the fact that you're lending your voice and being so open and honest, I bet you people will come out of the woodwork thanking you for what you did.
Yeah, and that's and you can probably agree to this. It's rewarding. I mean, it feels good, and you feel like you're helping people. And that's the thing, too, knowing that I can help people. I was a little hesitant at first to write the book. I know when I was still playing, I had offers to write a book and to make a movie, and I just felt the timing wasn't right, and I don't think I would have been able to be as open either, because I'm in uniform and I'm trying to be this athlete and out there and perform. I wouldn't have been able to do that. But now that I'm done, I have time to reflect, and the timing's right, and it's it's rewarding to be able to help.
John Lester can't throw to first base.
Right.
Mackie Sasser was a catcher. He couldn't throw it back to the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
You had Steve Sachs, who couldn't throw it to first base. This is not that abnormal in a very, but yet people don't understand it. Are you any closer to understanding what happened?
We understand where it leaves you and what it does to you, but to be able to say this is why it happened, no, because I've spoken to plenty of other people who've had it, and we all come from different backgrounds, and some of it good, some of it bad, whatever it may be. So we can't really put a finger on that. It's just one of those things that happen, and it's not only in baseball. I mean, I've had people reach out to me, from writers to announcers to whatever, you name it. I mean, field goal kickers, and it happens. So, the thing is it's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault.
Right.
And that in itself, I mean, can help you at least accept it.
Baseball lends itself to get in your head because basketball is much more reactionary. Football is much more reactionary. Baseball, you get the ball, you're thinking about it. You're going to get to pick what pitch and where, and there's 30 seconds between each pitch. So baseball lends itself to sort of getting in your own head.
It can. That's definitely. And if you look at even at hitters, I feel like hitters go through the same thing. You talk about an action and a reaction. Right? As a pitcher, it's an action, just like in golf. As in golf, it's an action, and we see it show up in golf a lot. People can't putt or, usually the short stuff around the green. And it's kind of the same thing with pitchers, as in it's usually the short throws are the ones that are the hardest. You look at Lester. He can't toss to first, but he can throw it as hard as he can at home.
Right.
And that's been the case with a lot of guys. And a lot of guys will say that, and not in all cases, but a lot of guys say too, when I get at a farther distance, let's say 100 feet or more, because the pitching mound is 60 feet, 6 inches, it seems to be better and okay. And that was the case with me. Once I went to the outfield, the cruel part of it was I was more accurate from 300 feet than I was 60.
Those throws you threw from right center field, I go on YouTube and watch them just to be inspired. They're so unbelievable.
Me and you both. Whenever I'm having a down day, I just pull that back
98
up.
miles an hour from where? Right center field to third base. It was unbelievable. Did it show up, Rick Ankiel, anywhere else? Like when you tried to open up a milk carton, could you not open up a milk carton?
No, it was only on the mound.
Only on the mound.
Only on the mound. That's why the name of the book's The Phenomenon.
When you were trying to change the channel, you knew the up button and the down button.
I could trust that my thumb was going to press it and it would work.
All right, there are a couple of things that happened in that first game in 2000 that I want to go back to, and one of them was Tony La Russa told everyone that Darryl Kyle was going to start the first game. And then last minute, the little switcheroo to get you in there to sort of beat out or to outthink the Braves.
Sure.
Did that have any effect on you?
No. Actually, I felt bad for Darryl Kyle. Here he's coming off one of his best seasons of his career and certainly earned to start that game one. And, the way the pitching matchup lined up, Tony thought that on certain days rest with Darryl coming back later in the series, when we got to that point, it would be better that way. So, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Mike Matheny, then catcher's friend, gave him a knife as a gift for the playoffs and takes the knife out of the sheath and cuts his thumb
right.
and misses the entire playoffs. So therefore, who was the catcher? Was it Hernandez?
Mm-hmm. Hernandez.
Then has to catch for you, losing your regular catcher. Did that have an effect?
I don't think so. I mean, you can look. It's one of those questions that we'll never be able to answer. You can say maybe it doesn't happen that game, or maybe it happens a different. It's just one of those things that I look at it like it happened.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with it. I don't think it did.
Yeah.
Personally.
Then the team sort of protected you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They put you behind the screens. They wouldn't let the media talk to you. And in some sense, people thought, oh, my goodness, they're going to make it worse if it's a bigger deal, right? It's like a kid who has a hard time reading a book. If you call attention to it, it's going to make it harder.
Sure.
Did that hurt or help in that situation?
I don't know. At the time, I think it could have helped because of, people were media asking me questions that I couldn't answer because I didn't know. And at the time I was so young, I didn't even understand what was going on. I remember after the game to the media, I'm saying, oh, this is a mechanical flaw and it'll never happen again. And even between that game one start in the playoffs and game two, my throwing session in the middle of that was lights out. And I, for all accounts, I was like, hey, I got this handled, I got this nicked, and then I come out in game two, and the same thing starts happening. I think there's a lot of things that, I'm sure I was in denial. I didn't even understand that maybe this is all mental, and I can't fix it with mechanical things.
Right.
Mechanics in my pitching. So at the time, it could have helped. I don't know. It's one of those.
Your teammates, who are like your brothers, right? You're a band of brothers. Did they treat you differently? Did they try and poke fun of you? Was it one of those things where, oh my goodness, he's throwing a no-hitter, don't talk to him, or did they try and sort of help you through it?
A little bit of both. I think everybody wanted to come up and put their arm around me and say, hey, it's going to be okay. And some guys didn't know what to say. And I think it's one of those situations where you can't not say anything.
Right.
But you have to say something, but they're not sure what to say.
Right.
And at the same point, them looking at it like, if this can happen to him, it can happen to me or anybody else. And I think that, that's frightening for players. So it's almost like they want to look and not look. And then, even when people are saying, hey, just keep your head up, it started to feel like pity. And, those were some of the hardest times, not for me, but for them too.
Can you laugh about it now?
I can, because it seems like a prior life and I'm through it. And, I want people to know, yeah, that was me throwing it off the backstop. And it's not like I made some decision and it cost me my career. These things just happen. But look at where I am now. I came back. I played as an outfielder. I made it to the big leagues twice. I was successful at that. I have a beautiful family, 2 beautiful kids, and life moves on.
Right. And what's more important, right? You have a beautiful family, beautiful kids, and so you didn't have that Hall of Fame career everybody thought you did. That's not a sin. That's just what happened to you.
It's what it is. You play the cards you're dealt, and that's exactly what I did. I worked my tail off, got to where I was, and now I am where I am doing what I'm doing. So
and you're a broadcaster.
That's right.
And it beats working for a living.
It's working. That's
Rick Ankiel with us. The book is called The Phenomenon. It debuts today. He's today 4 to 6 at the Hall of Fame downtown, 4 to 6, and then tomorrow he's at the Ethical Society, 7 p.m., and then he's at Chesterfield on the 20th, in Barnes & Noble in Chesterfield on the 20th, and then April 22nd he's at Costco at noon, all for a book signing and a chance to say hi, meet, and greet. What was the best? Did you have a teammate who had the best rag on you, the best one-liner, the best joke, the best fan rip on you?
Teammate? No, I had a pitching coach come out once. When I was working on this and. Walked out to the mound. And it's one of those situations, too, where, like, what do you say, right? He walks in, he says, hey, Yank, don't be afraid to mix in a strike here. So I had to laugh at it, too. Like, it's not from lack of effort, that's for sure.
Let's talk about your family and your children. You married, 2 children. You talk about the kids in the book. Mm-hmm. You mentioned your dysfunctional family. Your father is in jail. You've always never shied away from it. It's got to be tough. It's got to be emotional. Everyone's got family baggage. Mm-hmm. Did that have anything to do with this, do you think?
No, because I look at it like what happened in between all that? Why was I so good for so long and then all of a sudden something happened? And then, as I mentioned before, like even talking with Steve Blass, who, went through the same thing. He didn't come from a background like that. So, I kind of look at it like we all probably know somebody that's gotten cancer. And they're healthy, good. They didn't do anything to deserve. They just got it. It's just one of those things that happen.
Yeah. And I guess that's why it's like, why ask you the question? No one knows the answer, right? It's like, why does the sun come up in the east? Nobody knows why. Right? It's just baseball,
it's
right?
The way it is.
I was talking to Kelly Jackson before, and you were coming on the show, and she's like, "Well, did he hurt his arm?" I go, "No," and she goes, "I don't understand."
Yeah.
Like I said, it's something you can't explain. Why ask the question? Because there's just no answer to it, right?
I mean that's part of it too. Is me getting on with my life and maybe going back and saying, all right, let's see if we can find out what did happen.
Yeah.
And I wish maybe there was one thing that everybody could just put a finger on, but
you would have done it.
Of course.
Before we let you go, Rick Ankiel, that faithful playoff game happened in 2000. In 2007, 7 years later, you come back as an outfielder. I mean, you start back down at the bottom as a hitter and come all the way back. There were sort of rumors that you might start pitching again, but once you were done, right?
That's right.
You came back and you hit a home run in your first game back, and the next day you came back and you hit 2 more. Tony La Russa said it's one of the greatest memories he had in a Cardinal uniform. The other one was winning the 2006 World Series.
That's pretty strong words.
I remember that everybody cheered you on. What was that like, coming back and hitting those home runs 7 years later?
If I could have sat down and wrote a script before I came back, I don't think I could have wrote it any differently. But coming back and hitting that home run, I couldn't feel my legs. And when I hit it, I knew, I got that. I knew I got just enough. I felt like I floated around the bases on a magic carpet. I couldn't feel my legs. The whole time you're running around the bases, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that just happened. Like I got it, that happened. So one of those magical moments that I'll never forget.
Are you living here in St. Louis now?
No, I'm down in South Florida, and I come back and forth.
Okay, all right, good. We mentioned Cardinals, Astros, Nationals, Royals, Mets. Were you embraced in those cities as you were here in St. Louis?
No. you know, I don't think anything's ever like playing here in St. Louis. This is just baseball heaven, so to speak, and everybody's so into it. You know, personally for me, when I went and played for the Braves, that was one of those aha moments for me. I grew up a Braves fan down in South Florida. I grew up with TBS and with Bobby Cox. And in 2010, that was Bobby Cox's last year as a manager. He had already announced that before the season. And I got traded over there at the deadline from the Royals. And so to play with them, and I ended up hitting the biggest home run of my career there. We were in the playoffs in 2010 against San Francisco Giants, and I hit an extra inning home run to win it. Just another one of those things I'll never forget. You know, when you go full circle, that first playoff game when I started throwing wild pitches was against the Braves. Right. And then to come back full circle and hit a home run for them in the playoffs is just, you know, it's one of those things you shake your head at, like divine intervention or something.
Your two kids, are you pushing them into baseball?
I let them do whatever they want to do. But yeah, they're into t-ball. They play soccer. My younger one seems to love baseball more than the older one right now.
Right.
But yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's yeah, they can do whatever they want.
You're a good man, Rick Ankiel. The book is called The Phenomenon: Pressure, the Yips, and the Pitch That Changed My Life. He'll be at Cardinal State at the Ballpark Village today from 4 to 6. He'll be in Clayton Road on the Ethical Society tomorrow. Barnes & Noble in Chesterfield on the 20th. And the 22nd, he'll be at Costco in St. Louis for a book signing and a meet and greet. You are always welcome here. Any charity events you're involved with, anything you need to plug, you're always welcome here. And you're a good man, and you're an honest man, and you're stand up and take the slings and arrows and be counted and be voted on, and have the world judge you. It's not easy. You should be proud of yourself.
Well, thank you. I am. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. 924, Big 550.